Well, good evening, guys. Laurie's here with his haircut. Simon's here looking older and older. Every time I look back over the YouTube videos, I seem to get older and older every month. And if any of my staff nod to that, or whatever, they're in big trouble. Yeah,
You
so
can't
it's
get me, I'm in another room.
24th of November, getting near Christmas, so this will be the last one before Christmas. We'll speak to you after Christmas. And it's cold, so this will probably be the last time I shall go outside the doors for about 6 months now. Because anything under 10 and I'm getting shaky. When it gets to 0, I just stay wrapped up in a very warm rug. As Laurie will tell you, I don't do cold at all well.
No, he has a down jacket that I think is meant to be spec for climbing, 8,000 metre summits and stuff like that. But he has a down jacket that he will put on if the temperature does go below 10 degrees. So if you do see that in a video, you know that it's below 10 degrees and you know that he's probably complained quite a lot on the way.
I actually bought that jacket back in 2009 for an expected trip to Canada to another wildlife place. Bought all the kit, cost me a lot of money. The jacket was horribly expensive in the gloves, and we never went. So I ended up with a jacket that I paid for and could never use. So it was a very expensive jacket, and I now only wear it for the very best of occasions.
Is that why you try and wear it as much as possible when it gets cold, just to try
I don't wear it
make
that much
the money for it?
I don't want to ruin it. I'm too scared to ruin it. It's so expensive. But no, it has been much colder. We've had loads of rescues. Laurie's got a whole page full of rescues here in front of you. But I think the last couple of weeks, I've noticed, we've done so many more fox rescues. I think in the last 2 weeks, our rescuers have been out to over 14 foxes in the last 2 weeks. So I wonder whether that's anything to do with the clocks going back and animals thinking that it's safe when it's not safe, or whether, foxes, we know half of them, 70% of them don't make their first birthday. So all sorts of combinations, but our rescuers have been very diligent, going out to several foxes a day on some occasions. So Pete, Pat, Mike, and a few others now coming on board as well. We've got a few new rescuers who the name escapes me at the moment. Laurie will probably remember and put me to shame, and he might not. He's looking it up quickly. But yeah, a lot of foxes are coming in, lots of animals coming in. Normally this time of year, going back 10 years, November and December and January were absolutely dead months. We had really hardly any patients in at all, nothing going on. Climate change has affected this. Animals are much more active much later on. We don't get the snow we used to get. We're lucky to get snow falling for a day here now in England. So we don't get any of that. So animals are much more active. Hedgehogs are still often out and about. So you have to be very careful of those because it is getting cold. If they get caught unawares, it could be a bit dodgy. So if anybody finds a hedgehog in their garden in the UK under 600 grams at the moment, ring a wildlife centre for advice first, but there's a good chance it may need to come in for various reasons. And if you see in the very cold season a hedgehog out, then at least take it in and warm it up or do something to get it fed before you put it back out again. But ring a wildlife centre that's near you for advice. I'm sure we can all advise you pretty much the same information.
It really does depend. A lot of the hedgehogs, we've had an awful lot of hedgehogs here over the past couple of weeks, and a lot of them are in the 200-300 gram range. And unfortunately, with temperatures as they are at the moment, they don't have the time to put on all of that weight that they need to get themselves through hibernation. And at that point, if they can't, they won't make it out the other side. So it is vital, if you do see one that is that small, roughly the size of a tennis ball is what most people would usually say. If you do see that, call a wildlife centre for advice, and if advised to do so, they might ask you just to collect them up and bring them in to give them a bit of a helping hand. But please don't try and disturb them unless you've sought advice, because it might be that it can be left there if everything is okay.
Another tip for gardeners, I suppose, this time of year is if you're sort of raking things up and clearing things up, or moving a compost heap, or moving a pile of leaves, there could well be a hibernating animal in it, especially a hibernating hedgehog. So just go very carefully. If you see anything in there, just walk away from it. Let these poor animals hibernate. We always say to people, if you can put out in a corner of your garden that's not going to be in the way, put out a large pile of leaves, a great big pile of leaves, sort of maybe 3 foot wide, 3 foot high. Then put a plastic sheet on top of those leaves, because that keeps the leaves underneath dry. And to disguise that plastic sheet, put a few more leaves or twigs or whatever on top of that, then it doesn't look such an eyesore. But it gives animals a great opportunity to hibernate. All sorts of animals could well go in for a bit of shelter and a bit of dry warmth. So another little tip for the gardeners this time of year. And if you go into your shed this time of year and there's a sort of a pile which looks a bit strange of black bin liner shredded or leaves or something shredded at the back, you've likely got a hibernating hedgehog. So again, leave it alone, let it see the winter through, and it'll be fine for next year. So lots of hibernation tips this year, I think.
Yeah, it's not just us, it's all wildlife rescues throughout the UK. This is the main hedgehog season that we get now. So all of these young ones will be with us right the way through the winter until temperatures start to get a lot better in the spring. When they're nice and chunky, they can survive without any risk, and then we'll send them back out. But we have capacity for more than 400 of the little guys over winter, so it's going to be quite busy. And I think you've said previously you would love to find a way of marketing hedgehog poo. Because we get through so much of it that it would be a wonderful financial investment.
It could recompense us for the food that they eat, because if you think every hedgehog with us will eat about a third of a can of dog food a day, so if you work that out, they could be with us for 150 days. That's, I think, for over 100 hedgehogs, it's something like 7,000 cans per 100 hedgehogs, and we can actually sometimes get up to 400 hedgehogs. Hopefully we don't this year, because we have to keep buying food like crazy. They eat an awful lot, and what goes in most cases, must come out. So hedgehog poo, there's got to be a market for that. Nice face masks for the ladies. Maybe a face mask for Lawrie to get his beard shaved off, because it's very scruffy, his beard. Again, as always.
This is weird.
It's very scruffy. It is weird, but Laurie's weird. We're weird. We were just saying before we went on air, anybody who works in wildlife rehabilitation is slightly strange, to say the least. You have to be a bit mad to do it. So this is the madness, the wrinkly neck showing now. So, you know, if I don't get to 600 grams by next week, will I wake up in the spring? I have no idea.
We'll make sure there's a hutch made up for you.
Excellent, thank you. Right, tell us a few stories, Lawrie. What's going on?
Just before that, Hannah on Facebook has just asked, I saw a limping fox in the car park of my flat last night. It ran away when I opened my window. Does it need help? Now, this is actually something we get quite a lot with limping foxes. So it sounds a bit weird, but foxes in general can be a little bit of a wuss when it comes to leg injuries. And a lot of them will be limping for tiny little things, small graze on the paw pad, maybe they've landed slightly dodgily. It's always worth keeping an eye on injuries like that. If it's something that gets worse or is there for an extended period of time, then yes, that would be something that could potentially need help. But if you've just noticed it and it's just slightly not placing it, even if it's standing normally or sitting and starts to put weight back on it, that will be perfectly fine. It's actually a lot better to let that animal recover from that injury by themselves rather than the stress of capture and captivity and all of that lot. But I'm sure would you agree with that one, Simon?
I would. In fact, well, I was slightly what's there because I just had an interesting little line come up. Al Max has said, has anybody spotted any woodcocks? I think you probably know the answer to that, and it'd be interesting for his comment why he's made that comment, because what's happened to us recently, Lawrie?
We have had dozens of the little guys. So woodcocks are a species that we don't often see. We might get one or two a year, something like that. They are a migratory species, so we tend to see them when we get round towards that migration time. But this year we have seen loads of them. I think in a day we had 5, and it's just continued ever since. And it's really weird because a lot of other centres, we have inquired around, a lot of other centres have also seen quite an influx of these birds. Not entirely sure why, not sure if it's temperature related or to do with migrations or anything like that, but we are seeing an awful lot of them. So we do actually have a few updates on the woodcocks that we've had in. They are remarkable birds, very odd looking things really.
They're pretty. Where's a picture? Is Lawrie on the ball or not? He's sort of on the ball. There he is. Look, pretty birds.
So this is a woodcock.
They look very like a snipe.
One of the smaller ones. They do look like snipes, so it's quite difficult to distinguish between woodcock and snipe, especially from a photo. You can tend to do it on the size, and there's a slight difference in the facial markings between a woodcock and a snipe, and the call is quite different as well. But
the beak's a different shape for a start, and also if you see them in flight, a snipe will sort of jig from side to side or up and down. It's a very uneven flight, rather like a green woodpecker. So that's all the things to spot.
But we've seen a whole load of them. They've come in from a whole host of different reasons. Anything from, we've had one that's flown into a window, one that was caught by a cat, one that flew into a car, I think, as well. There's a whole host of different reasons. And they're all from different areas, so it's not just a group from one area that we've seen. They are all around. So if any of you guys from other wildlife centres are in the comments, either on Facebook or on YouTube, please let us know if you've seen a big influx in these guys as well. It'd be really interesting to see if it's just something that we've experienced or if it's something that's a bit wider. But we are also pleased to say with our woodcocks, and I need to give credit to Ben, who is our sort of cameraman editor guy that we use an awful lot at the moment for this fantastic photo. But we have actually managed to get a lot of them back out to the wild recently. So this was yesterday? No, Monday. This is Monday, and one of them flying back out to the wild, completely healthy. I believe this is one that flew into a window. So absolutely fine, completely healthy, passed a flight test, had a full veterinary check, and was able to be released once again. So hopefully we're getting through our little influx of woodcocks at the moment, but there's still more coming in.
Sadly, this time of year when people are pheasant shooting, woodcocks get shot quite a lot as well. They're considered a delicacy on some tables. So yeah, we haven't had any shot ones in, thank heavens, because they're quite small birds, they're not very big. But yeah, if you see them, it'd be interesting to know if other centres in the UK have had as many as we've had in, because it's a strange year for woodcocks.
It is very odd, very beautiful birds. But every time you get one in, you get people going, like, what do we feed it? How do we feed it? Just because they're so unusual that you kind of forget. You get into the habit of all the species that we usually deal with, and you sort of forget some of the more esoteric ones. But that isn't the only thing that we've had a whole load of recently. The other thing is foxes. Usually at this time of year, as Simon said earlier, it is a little bit quieter for us here. This is the time that we can actually do a lot of our renovation work, repaint things, rebuild things, just modify things, make sure that everything is back up to scratch for the start of our orphan season next year. But it has not stopped with foxes at all. I believe we have more than 14 currently here, which is quite rare for this time of year, and we've got more calls coming in day out. As Simon was saying, most of our rescue team are out on fox calls several times a day, and it is getting a bit mad. It's not just one reason. We've had mange, we had one in with a horrible rash on its back with a weird plastic coating. We're not entirely sure what happened with that one. A few with injuries, one that had a really nasty wound around the neck from netting. We have had quite a few. Can you remember anyone distinctly?
No.
Well,
that's not that
helpful.
Conversation dead, didn't it? Absolutely stopped dead.
So the main one that we've had recently that's actually gone through the process and back out the other side is this little girl. So this one was actually rescued by London Fire Brigade. She was found in a barbed wire fence. They managed to cut her out and get her down, sort of have her pinned down before they gave us a ring. Amazingly, it's amazing they managed to do that because she was feisty as heck. Very, very bitey, but we were able to get there. This was about midnight or something like that, and remove the remains of the barbed wire that was all tangled in her fur. We did bring her back. She had a number of puncture wounds, which unfortunately, because of the nature of barbed wire, did break down a little bit during her stay. Needed a bit of veterinary treatment, slight surgery just to debride those and make sure it was all closed. But she has now gone back out to the wild, completely healthy and ready to attempt to bite yet more wannabe rescuers. So thank you very much to the Fire Brigade for that one as well. We really do appreciate your help.
If you do see an injured animal, guys, it's always important to remember, you know, some foxes are really friendly and fine. They're a wild animal, badgers, deer, whatever. Don't try and do it yourself unless you're really experienced, because they will turn around and bite you, and it really does hurt. Badgers, foxes and all deer can really inflict nasty injuries to us if we don't get it right. So you need the right equipment, and you need possibly better to call somebody like us or any wildlife centre in your area. I'm sure they'll be very pleased to come and help you.
Yeah, it's, as well as, we're not saying that foxes are going to bite everything and all of the stuff that the tabloids love to hark on about, but any animal, when it is cornered, when it's put under stress, when you're trying to grab hold of it, they do have a fight or flight response, and if they can't run, they will try and defend themselves. So it's always worth, if you don't have the experience or the right equipment, make sure you get a professional in to do it, because it's a lot better for the animal as well as for the person involved.
As I always say to Lawrie, it's the 3 Fs. Which he didn't know when he came here, the 3 Fs, and everybody's terrified when I say that because they wonder what I'm going to say. But the first thing an animal will do is freeze. The second thing it will do is flee, and if it can't do either, if it doesn't manage to flee, it will fight. It's fighting for its life. It's like us going up against Godzilla. I mean, it's, you know, we're far bigger than they are. They're not used to humans at all, and they very luckily are very wary of us, which is why you should always enjoy your wildlife from a distance and don't interact unless it's really, really necessary. Here endeth Simon's lesson for the 24th of November.
So we've had another few patients as well that aren't fox or woodcock related recently. One of the prettiest that we've had is actually this little girl. So this is a female barn owl, and she arrived with us after unfortunately being hit by a car. Now this is quite a common thing that we see with raptors, and sadly, because of the nature of the biology of raptors, when they're hit by a car they can often suffer from eye injuries. This one had you can see from the left photo in that, a horrible ulcer to her left eye. We did try and treat that non-surgically just to make sure if it could be saved without any intervention, then we would try and do so. Unfortunately that didn't go ahead, and she's now had what's called an evisceration. So usually if you remove her eye it's called an enucleation, but with owls and certain other raptors it's really, really important to maintain the structure of the eye, because otherwise you damage that facial disc that they have, and that helps to concentrate sound into the ear, which is the main way that they hunt and can find prey. So you actually need to take out the contents without taking out the surrounding structures, so that is called an evisceration. She has now had that. She's so much better. She is so much more lively, so much happier with everything, and is already taking to her new life very well. Owls can cope perfectly well with one eye. There's been a lot of research into that. They do hunt by sound mostly rather than sight. Their sight's not that great. She will be absolutely fine, and the plan is once she is fully healed from that, she will be able to head back to the wild.
I would slightly argue that, Lawrie. Sorry, I'm going to argue with Lawrie.
You can argue
very good. Sight is very, very acute in owls.
It's good, but they can see a match a mile away or something.
Yeah, something a ridiculous amount of distance. But obviously for the last bit of their journey, when they sort of go back a bit and put their feet out to grab their prey, they're relying totally on the sound. And I'm told that an owl can hear cotton wool falling through the air, which is what happens to Laurie's head when he has a haircut.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, amazing hearing. They have got good sight. They have got amazing hearing as well. So both together make them a perfect hunting thing for tiny little creatures in the grass below them. They can see them from a hell of a distance, rather like kestrels and sparrowhawks. They can see from so far, and then they hone in on the sound as well, and they manage to get their prey.
Anita, actually, from Folly Wildlife Rescues, just put, we have a lovely barn owl at Folly at the moment. Hopefully she gets released soon. I hope your owl is doing well as well. It'd be interesting to know what's wrong with her, if it's an RTA as well. And hopefully all goes well with that one. Thank you for the info on that.
Absolutely. We'll come and steal it from you because I love barn owls.
So, going from a very pretty bird to a very pissed off looking bird, I think we can say. This jackdaw, who doesn't look particularly impressed, was actually trapped in a chimney for 5 days. Managed to get it out, bring it in. Unfortunately, it's very heavily covered in soot and has needed quite a few baths to get back into good condition. The issue you get a lot of this, other than obviously they're starving, their body condition might not be great, is the soot can cause real issues with the feathers. It can muck with the delicate oils and things that's needed for flight and for waterproofing. So we've had to go through, clean all that lot off, make sure that it can preen perfectly fine. It's had numerous flight tests just to make sure everything is okay. Spent a bit of time in an aviary just to get a bit of body condition, but he is also now back in the wild. So hopefully he doesn't look quite as pissed off with life now he's back in the skies.
He is. Abby spoke. What did Abby say?
She did. Abby thinks pissed off is swearing.
It's a bit
interesting
scary.
to see if it is.
YouTube might consider it swearing.
We're going to get demonetised again.
That'll be your fault. It's coming out your salary, Lawrie. Coming out your salary. So what else have we had? We've had quite a few. We've had quite a lot going on recently, actually, haven't we?
We have.
We've had all sorts of things going on. What else have we had that's interesting?
A lot of hedgehogs. As well as
something
the young ones,
exciting.
we have had adult ones. So this little guy as well. This one actually arrived covered in glue. We're not entirely sure how. I would imagine it's probably from a glue trap or something similar. Wasn't actually stuck to the trap at the time, but this one has again required a lot of work to try and get all that glue out of the fur. Tend to find olive oil works really, really well to get glue out. But the problem is with hedgehogs, they curl up. So if you leave any sticky residue at all, they can actually stick themselves back together again. So it's quite important when you do get rid of all that, that it is cleaned, and if there is any sticky residue left, we actually use a medicated powder on there just to make sure that they're not sticky when they curl up, if it needs more than a couple of different attempts.
I had a question actually coming on now. Somebody said, have you been beaten up by any swans recently? Brings me to an issue which we all have to be very careful of. We do have avian flu back in the UK at the moment. So with any water birds, or any birds actually, but particularly water birds, we have to be very, very careful. We have to have a special quarantine procedure. We have to have a special protocol. So we're trying not to take in more birds than we have to. In fact, just before we came on air tonight, we were told the RSPCA just got a swan, which didn't seem anything wrong with it, but it was just very lethargic, which is actually one of the signs. If you actually Google the signs of avian flu in a bird or a water bird, it's pretty much anything. I mean, it could be anything. It's hard to actually define. Luckily, it hasn't come down into our neck of the woods at the moment, but all the centres throughout the UK are being very, very careful. Some centres aren't taking birds at all, some centres aren't taking water birds, and if we do, our biosecurity has to be extremely accurate. We don't bring them into the centre, we keep them entirely in a separate place, and if there's any doubt, sadly, we do have to euthanize. So we're just, if you've got a bird in the UK at the moment, try to find out why it's not looking right. If it's obviously been hit by a car or something that's obvious, then that's one thing, but always call first before you bring it in, because we are having to be very careful. We don't want avian flu to spread any further than it already has, to be honest, so be careful, guys.
The one thing is, where if we get a single confirmed case of avian flu at the centre, every single bird patient we have here has to be immediately euthanised, and the centre is put on a quarantine. So it's not just a case of one thing and suddenly one patient doesn't make it. Unfortunately, it is a real issue. If it does rip through the centre, it causes huge problems. So we do have to make sure that it just doesn't get here at all. So we do have precautions in place. We know several other wildlife rescues also have various precautions in place, ranging from what we have, which is more of a quarantine area and separate from the main bird population, right the way through to not taking birds at all. So if you do have a bird, you do contact your local wildlife rescue and they are either asking a lot of questions or a little unsure, please, please, please don't judge them, get angry at them, take it out on them or anything like that. It is a real scare for wildlife rescues at the moment, and if we do get one single case in, it can ruin so many lives that we're trying to save. So please have a little patience with wildlife rescues on that one.
Just had a word in from somebody in the Netherlands. They've got avian flu there, so Europe particularly is prone to it, you know, because a lot of these birds migrate. So yeah, avian flu is pretty much all over Europe. I think we've got it. I think most of Europe has got it, to be honest. So we're just always being extra precautious. Extra precautious? That's a good word. I might market that one.
There's quite a few questions that have been coming out. A lot of people saying seeing white squirrels and black squirrels. So we do actually get both in the UK. They're not a separate species. They are grey squirrels. It says you've got albino squirrels, which are the white ones, and melanistic squirrels, which are the black ones. We actually have quite a few. We've seen, I'm not sure we've seen any black squirrels here, but we've seen a fair few white squirrels.
I think we have black squirrels in occasionally, but certainly white squirrels we get in occasionally. I think something like one, no, I'm not going to say the number because I've forgotten what it is, but it's one in many thousand. There's not that many of them around. They do survive in the wild. People watch them and they have their normal lifespan. So yeah, they are quite cute. They are very cute. Like you get black rabbits, which are actually just a wild rabbit, but they've gone black. So the melanistic has come out again.
Actually, we had an albino crow and an albino hedgehog recently as well. It's relatively common that you'll see the odd one pop up, but yeah, it's any animal can get it. Even foxes can be melanistic. There's actually a black fox walking around Kent somewhere that I think they're tracking at the moment. There's a whole page dedicated to tracking black foxes.
Cute. So what else we had on? Lots of questions coming. Anything on?
Yes. So
have we had anything on Facebook,
in a sanctuary has asked how many different species of foxes are there in the UK? So we actually only have one. We have the red fox, Vulpes. That's the only species that we have native to the UK. There are the odd one of pet foxes. So it's actually illegal to keep a red fox as a pet in the UK completely, but there are people who bring over silver foxes or other species or domesticated foxes that they bring over as well. But in terms of foxes that you'll see out and about, we only have the one species, though they do have quite a variety of different colours, anything from the typical orange right the way to silvers, blacks, even white as well. So there's quite a variety.
Keep going, Lawrie. Laurie's looking at the screen now. You can see him diligently trying to find interesting questions.
I'm reading through an awful lot of comments. So I've got actually both Facebook and YouTube up at the moment. So
a lot of questions on that sheet.
Oh, Abby's just told me there's a whole load of questions on the sheet. I'd forgotten to check that, to be honest, so I will check that. James has asked, what do woodcocks eat? So woodcocks eat insects mostly. They sort of scrabble around through undergrowth trying to get that out. And we fed them tiny little insects, sort of maggot, mealworm sort of things, mini things. But we'll put it in bark and cover and things like that so that they can dabble and forage naturally as they would do. Someone's asked, do seals mate for life? As far as I'm aware, no. I don't think they do, to be honest. Seals they're almost like deer. They'll come in and there'll be a beach master, a big dominant male, who will breed with as many females as he possibly can. And the females will pick their male depending on who's the strongest, who's got the loudest roar or anything like that as well. But as far as I'm aware, they don't mate for life. They're not one of the species that is monogamous like that. Would you agree?
I would agree. Far be it from me to argue with thee, Mr. Encyclopedia Britannica, who's sitting over there.
That is not even slightly true.
Unless, of course, you remind him to do something that you asked about 8 times in the last week, and he still hasn't done it. So, in some ways, he's encyclopedic. In other ways, he's an absolute nightmare because he remembers less than I do. And I'm worried at 70. Him at his age is just scary, man.
What he's referring to is, at the moment, so I'm a first aid instructor, and we are currently trying to make sure that a whole load of people, including Simon, are first aid qualified, just so that we can make sure that the first aid capability of our site is perfectly fine. So we've been very, very busy over the past couple of weeks, and it has sort of taken a bit of a backseat. We are getting to that, but I hope you'll understand when the idea of teaching Simon how to give mouth to me is something that keeps me awake at night with nightmares. So I hope you'll agree with that one.
You're safe, mate. If you are in that situation in reality, I'll just say, sorry, Lawrie, you're going to die.
We do actually have a defib. We've got a defib and we've got some CPR masks, so actually that's perfectly fine.
We're pretty well kitted up.
It is something that we are going to get to, because we do need to make sure that the human side of the centre is just as well cared for as the animal side. So we will get to that, and I will be constantly reminded.
Laurie's done first aid for many years. I did it for many years when I was diving a lot. I had to do it every single year when I was diving. So basically, all the old skills. And in fact, now as a first aider, you can do far less than you used to be able to do in the old days. It's very weird. I'm not sure even if you're allowed to stick a sticking plaster on nowadays. It seems absurd what first aiders can do and what they can't. So somebody could be bleeding to death. You say, "Oh dear, you're bleeding to death. There's nothing I can do about it." Which is
basically teaching a first aid course now is tell them to call emergency services.
Yeah, unless they're unconscious, and then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
No, just put pressure on the spot. Get a big towel or a big something and put pressure on the point if you're bleeding like crazy. But that's about it.
So a few more questions. One from Adam Warner, who we may know as the husband of the person that is sat just over here. That I will no doubt have to put a camera on at some point. Adam has donated £10. Thank you very much, as always, Adam. And has put, good evening, random question. When was the last time you had a mandarin duck as a patient? So it's been quite a while, actually. But mandarin ducks are technically not native to the UK. We do get the odd chick and the odd adult in. What you have to do is, as soon as they arrive, you have to apply for a license to release. You can't release without having that license in place. We do get the odd duckling that comes in. We don't usually see the adults. There aren't that many of them around where we are. They're more sort of for ornamental lakes and things like that. We do see the odd duckling, and when they go back out to the wild, of course, that is covered under the relevant licensing restrictions. But he's also got even more colourful than my socks.
We've got mandarin ducks on 20 acres.
Oh, there you go. So what Simon is calling 20 acres is actually the new centre. The new centre that we're going to have. We call it the Wildlife Aid Centre, is the official name for it. And that is going to be our home when we move from the site that we're on currently, about half a mile, just down the road that way. and we're hoping to not only have a new centre, we're also going to have a commercial domestic veterinary practice as well. We're going to have an education centre and a big wetland centre as well. So there's a lot of work on that. If you don't know about that, please make sure to watch the video we did quite a while ago, more than a year.
I think we've got something. We've got something on the website, haven't we? We've got something about the new centre on the website.
Yes,
we're still looking for a major sponsor. So if anybody is interested, or they know anyone who's loaded with money and wants to leave a beautiful legacy, they're the 3 lakes which we built this year. It all happened this year. They're actually much greener now. That was taken about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and actually that was all greened up quite well. So those lakes were not there at all before we started. They're all there now, and right at the far end of the picture is the building platform where the visitor centre is going to be, and the workshops and the media centre. All that's going to be up on that bit. Then on the next field, just past the hedge, is where the main hospital will be, and all the cages and all the pens. So lots going on. We're actually in the middle of now, actually just building a hibernaculum just at the base of the new platform, because it's going to be a great place for things to hibernate in the winter. That's all going forward at the moment, but it's getting a bit wet down there now, so you don't drive down there more than you have to. I think the most interesting thing to me is we were talking to a guy who's given us, sold us quite a lot of aquatic plants, which we've done about a 25% planting of the ponds already this year. We're going to do another 25% in the spring next year. But we were saying to him, you know, what should we put in there's little sort of ditches between all 3 ponds, so there's a little sort of waterway from one pond to the next pond to the next pond, so the water runs through. And he said, why don't you try planting a bit of watercress? So we went down to Tesco's, we bought 1 bunch of watercress and thought, well, I wonder what'll happen. And we should take a picture of it, Lawrie, now, because now about 8 weeks later, the watercress is about 6 foot long and 3 foot wide in one of the ditches. So we never need to buy watercress again. It's absolutely there forever. So if anybody wants to have smoked salmon and scrambled eggs and watercress,
egg and cress sandwich, isn't it?
We can, yeah, that's little cress. That's not watercress, but watercress is hot and lovely, mustardy. So perhaps we'll start selling watercress at the new centre. That would be quite interesting, couldn't it?
So Julia's asked, is that the M25? So yes, on the left-hand side of that photo, that is the M25. Part of the move to the new centre is actually also to prove that British wildlife can flourish even next to the busiest road in the UK. So it's surprisingly quiet considering it is next to the M25. You can hear it. It's not as loud as you do. As you expect it to be, but that area is full of wildlife. Simon actually went down a few weeks ago and actually saw a kingfisher down there. We've seen barn owls, roe deer, foxes, badgers, sparrowhawk. We've had a whole load of things down there, and it will only get bigger and better now that we've got the habitat in place for them to do so. So yes,
I think
the
most pleasing thing for me was the roe deer had 2 babies this year on the field, and while all the diggers were there, massive great diggers, massive great earth movers, the deer was standing quite quietly with the 2 fawns at the bottom of the field, so it doesn't disturb them that much. So obviously being next to a motorway is not that disturbing either, but as soon as we pull off the site, hopefully we'll get even more wildlife down there. So we know we've got badgers, we know we've got foxes. We're just looking forward to getting the cameras up. We've got 2 huge cameras going up down there shortly, not only for our security, but so we can see what's going on. And one of the cameras has got incredible zoom capacity, so we can have it at one end of that 12-acre field, and we can zoom right into the other end. So if we send anything interesting, we can move the camera around and see what's actually there and what's going on. So we know we've got kingfisher nests, so in the spring, hopefully the summer, we'll be able to see what's going on with those as well. It'll be an interesting learning place. It'll be interesting to see what species appear and come in naturally. So it'll be exciting, I hope.
There's over on YouTube. There's a bit of a debate at the moment. Question for you, Simon: does the UK have any venomous snakes?
Yeah, it does. Laurie's one of them. If Lawrie bites you, you need to get to hospital within about 20 minutes. We have the adder.
It's not venomous.
We have the adder, which it can be dangerous. You should never just ignore an adder bite. Most people aren't that affected by it. They're feeling a bit off for a while. But if your pet or your dog gets bitten by a snake, you should take it to a vet, because it can kill it. It can kill them. But they're quite rare. Snakes sort of are quite in sandy ground. They're not in wet ground. So, and if you live on a sort of sandy heaths, and your dog gets bitten or jumps up and down, then it might be worth just checking to see if it's got a snake bite and get it to a vet in case. But people, I think 1 or 2 people have probably died from adder snake bites, but it'll be
I
one
think the last one was something like 96 or 97 or something.
Yeah,
like
long time ago.
Long time ago.
But that's the only venomous snake we have in the UK.
Yeah, we
know
have
it's a
actually
mushroom.
3 species. So the 2 others that we tend to get are the smooth snake, which is actually very, very rare, and the grass snake. Now, there's a lot of debate in the chat about whether the grass snake is venomous. No, they're not. They do have teeth. They can give you a bit of a nip. They really don't want to be honest. They're not venomous at all, but they will make you stink of garlic if you handle one of those. Whenever we do any sort of grass snake rescue, we always wear gloves because the smell of garlic is impossible to get out your hands once you've dealt
Take
with
about
those.
3 days washing your hands constantly to get rid of that smell. It's a bit of an unpleasant smell, to be honest. So
Yes.
gloves are a must. Gloves are really important.
The other one, the one that isn't a snake but looks like a snake, is the slow worm. So a slow worm is actually a legless lizard. They have eyelids, like lizards, unlike snakes. They're often confused with snakes found in compost heaps and things like that, but they are an entirely separate species. And if you actually look at them really carefully, if you get a male during the breeding season, they've got a beautiful sort of speckled blue pattern on the back of them. They're stunning animals. We get quite a few of those as well.
I wasn't listening earlier on as you waffled away. Did you mention smooth steaks?
Yes,
You did, okay.
I did.
I was miles away.
Simon never listens.
I was in my own little planet for a while. Lawrie was holding it together quite well. It gives me a chance to have a sleep.
Down to that, would you say that a kingfisher is the same size as a hummingbird? That's an interesting one. It depends on the hummingbird, really, because you can get some tiny ones.
Yeah, I would think kingfisher's bigger in the norm. Hummingbirds are tiny little things. They're rather like
Kingfisher
our
is
gold crest,
probably
aren't they?
slightly bigger than a robin, would you say?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, much bigger. than that.
More like a sort of small blackbird sort of size.
Yeah, difficult.
They're very,
Yeah,
very
it is.
pretty animals.
They are
Very
pretty.
pretty animals. And you can tell the difference between males and females by the colour of their lower beak. If it's a fully black beak, it's a male. If it's got a yellow bar, an orange bar underneath, that is a female. They are beautiful creatures, and
That's
I
if you get to
always
see
love
one
taking
long enough.
photos.
Normally, all you see is a flash of blue go past you, and you see
They
a
are
flash.
known
and you
as the
know it's
blue
kingfisher.
flash in the
They
wildlife
are.
photographer community because that tends to be all you see of them.
All you
just
see
this
them
blue flash
gone
going
quick.
past.
We'd actually just finished that top lake, and we had a pipe going from the bottom lake to the top lake, and we had an orange pipe sticking out into the lake by about 3 feet. And the day after they finished it, there was a kingfisher sitting on it fishing, so I was quite excited by that. Lawrie didn't see it, I saw it.
I know
I
you
saw
didn't
it.
have a camera either.
I know I
The
didn't.
one time that we haven't had a camera when we've been down there, and that's when you see the kingfisher. So I'm saying that it just didn't happen. He was only trying to make me jealous because it's never happened
Definitely
since. We now have a camera in the car permanently.
Yeah, permanently, absolutely.
So
So what else we got? One of them
Finbar says,
rescues.
question for Lawrie. If Simon got caught up in a football net, would you cut him out and release him into the wild, or do you let him sweat it out a bit whilst you finish your coffee and sarnies? To be honest, at that point,
I
I'd
know
just
the
pass
answer
it
to
off
that.
to another rescue.
I know the answer to that. Yeah, he just
Yes,
say sorry.
I'd
call the
use my
RSPCA.
Leatherman scissors because he'd get really annoyed that I'm using the Leatherman scissors to get him out.
Oh, Lawrie. Mouth to mouth is out of the window for you, Lawrie. No
A
question.
few people are saying, what are sarnies? So sarnies are actually quite a northern British way of saying sandwich.
Like
would you
bath.
say that down here?
Lawrie
Did you
said
say a
just
sarnie?
now, he said bath. He needed a bath. A bath to anybody in Surrey. It's a bath, absolutely. Not bath.
Not to me.
And sarnies,
I was
sarnies are,
born
of
in
course,
Lancashire.
they're sandwiches. One has a sandwich, or one doesn't have a sandwich. In Surrey, one cuts the crust off the sandwiches, and they're normally cucumber sandwiches.
That
Very,
is
very
a
cute.
complete waste of bread.
They're beautiful, beautiful cucumber sandwich. You go to Harrods, or you go to any of the posh
I've
hotels.
never once been
and
to
you have your
Harrods. I'm
cucumber
not sure that's a
sandwiches.
surprise.
Jolly good share. Super. No, sandwiches are a good thing. And Lawrie has them.
Oh.
Go on. No,
No,
off you go,
continue.
Lawrie. Far be it from me, Lawrie. Far be it from me.
Charlotte has asked, what is the rarest non-bird patient you've rescued?
Bloody hell.
There's been a lot of one-offs, I think. You've rescued an
Every-
iguana.
Yeah, that's quite well. That wasn't even British, but yeah, I went up a tree to rescue a guy which whacked me across the back with its tail, which really hurt. I mean, I never remember all the rare things. I love the rescue for what it is. It could be something really, really common, but if it's a good rescue, I remember the rescue because it was something difficult or exciting or hard or challenging. I love a challenging rescue. So I can't think of anything recently that's been that challenging. We had No, I can't think of anything this year that's been that challenging. Rescues actually this year have been down, which really upset both Lawrie and me hugely.
Well, it's the most
Because we love
challenging
our
rescues that we've had, Simon's not actually been there for. Certainly the best ones this year. Like the
Well,
two roe deer caught rotting, something
Yeah,
that we've
did
never
that,
had before.
did that. I was there for the
you were
fallow
busy
deer
for that.
rescue.
The first fallow deer that we did, you were
Yeah,
busy
first
for
fallow I
that.
missed. I wasn't there for that. The other two fallow deer I was there for. But yeah, fallows are quite interesting. If it's a red deer, I always send Lawrie. He's expendable and expandable, so you know I'm not getting near a red deer.
You can't control a red deer. So just to put it into perspective, the deer that we usually deal with are roe deer. They're between sort of 20 to 25 kilos, something like that. Fairly easy to restrain and handle. Then the fallows go right the way up to 85 kilos for a big male, big buck. They require a couple of people to hold them down, and to be honest, if they want you to get off, they will throw you off. They're incredibly strong animals. If we go right the way from there, a red deer, an adult male during the breeding season, is about 200 to 250 kilos. At that point, that is where you get the tranquilizer rifle and you do it half a mile away.
Don't go near those guys because you'll lose. You could lose with a fallow deer quite easily. If a fallow deer was really miffed, you wouldn't win against a fallow deer either. Even if there was 3 of you, you wouldn't hold it down. So only if they're stuck in wire or something, which is most of ours are sort of stuck in something quite strong, and we can get them down and hold them down. But if it was got really crossed, you wouldn't stay on a fallow deer either. And if they thrash their heads, they're not meaning to hurt you, but if they thrash their heads, they've got massive spread antlers on them. It could do you massive amount of damage. So you have to be really careful. Never attempt any sort of deer rescue, I would say, on your own. Always ring a wildlife centre because they are a big, difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, they're amongst one of the most difficult rescues that we do. Not just for getting injured by the animal, just because they're so unpredictable and it's so easy just to get on the wrong side and end up with an injury as a result. So we do always take a lot of extra care, as you've seen if you've watched any of our videos from fallow. We do take a lot of care to make sure that we have enough people there and that the animal is properly restrained, and we work as quickly as possible to get it free and get it back to the wild. So a few comments have come. Monique has just asked, have you ever rescued an otter?
Yes. I don't want to talk about that.
But the most recent one,
the most recent one was sad. It was a youngster. It was on the Thames at Wharton-on-Thames. First time I've ever seen an otter up there. It was just curled up on beside the towpath. And we got it back, really excited, because I do love otters. They are really cute. You still have to be careful. They give you a very, very nasty bite. In fact, they say if you get an adult otter and you get bitten by an adult otter, you are going to be going to A&E because they will take a finger off. Massive, strong bite. So again, don't handle those, even if you think it's not very well or it's nearly unconscious. Don't touch it, guys. Just ring somebody like us, and we'll let Lawrie get bitten because I'm scared of them as well. But no, so that was the most recent one. We don't get a lot of otters. They are coming up to Surrey. They are, I'm told, on the River Mole. We had
one. Thames now.
Yeah, we had one squashed on the road in Cobham a few years ago. So that was on the River Mole. We know they're on the Thames because we went and rescued that one, but not as many as I'd like. We will get more otters. So hopefully they'll come to us slowly.
Oh, there we go. Monique just said, I saw an otter by the River Mole. So there we go. There are otters on the mole.
As long as she's right, it wasn't a mink.
This pen, but
we get so many people telling us they've seen an otter and it turns out to be a mink. We go rushing over to have a look and it's a mink. But if it's an otter, it's an otter, and if it's a mink, it's a mink. But yeah, they are cute. I do love them.
Michelle has asked, do you do any wildlife courses? So that is actually an interesting one, and harks back to the whole new centre thing. So at the moment, no, unfortunately we don't at the moment. Obviously we do offer placements for vets, vet nurses, vet students as well to experience wildlife. There's very little wildlife training with veterinary courses at the moment. But in terms of anything else, that is actually something we're looking to get more into when we move on to the new centre. It's going to focus a lot more on education, on educating not only the public and helping vets and vet nurses, vet students, everyone in that industry gain the knowledge and the understanding of wildlife. So unfortunately it's not something that we do at the moment, but it is something that we're hoping to get into. You probably have a little more information on that one.
I do. It's a bit of matter of watch your space. I mean, Laurie's going to be the first wildlife photographer who actually teaches all these experts to shoot in soft focus. I had to get that one in because I mean he's actually a brilliant photographer. He's got amazing book. He keeps whinging about his book. We keep saying to Lawrie, put out one of your books about wildlife. He's got some most amazing wildlife photos. Oh, nobody will buy it. Nobody will buy it. Lawrie, they'll really want it. He's gone now. He's going to sulk now. He's probably going to get his book to show off. But he's a great wildlife photographer. We think he should do a book. We think we sell enough. They are very expensive to produce. I don't know what they're going to cost. Possibly in the region of 30 or 40 pounds. But it's a big coffee table type book. The pictures are amazing, and we're trying to get Lawrie to do one. He said he's been doing it all year, and I still haven't seen any proofs or any of it. So it would be
I'm
British
very
wildlife.
bad at actually finding time to do these
It's
things.
been about 2 years since he started putting it
2
together.
years, yeah, 2 years.
Probably more than that.
He
but-
spent that long trying to get a decent picture that was in focus. This is the trouble with Lawrie. All these times, he only gets one picture a year that's actually in sharp focus.
And
so
you
he doesn't
take
put the book
that.
up. But look, guys, he's going to show it to you now. This is the book he did last time. He hasn't done it for us, but he's going to do one. But it's a large
This is
book.
a one-off we did ages ago.
It's a one-off. It's beautiful. The images are beautiful. So you know we're probably going to try.
I
to
never
produce-
get this out. I only get it out when Simon decides to try and.
We're going to do a limited
Sell
edition
me
of this
to other
book.
people.
Everybody's seeing it sideways on, Lawrie. Just show them one picture that's the right way up. Otherwise, I get very shocked. So there are a couple of pictures there. I think it's about A3, Lawrie. Is it even bigger than A3?
I think it's A3.
A3. So it will be a great book. He is going to do it next year. He promised this year and he promised last year, but he will do it in 22. So if anybody wants to pre-order that book, you could cheer Lawrie up by pre-ordering the book now, and then he knows he's going to sell at least one copy. So there he is with some fox photos again. Great images. He's photoshopped most of those. There were foxes that were in at the centre, and he's photoshopped the background on them to make you think they're in the wild. No, I mean, he does go out. I mean, he went out.
I just steal all of the ones that Simon takes. I think that's the only way it works.
Absolutely. I mean, he vanished the other day. Where the bloody hell's Lawrie? Excuse my French, we shouldn't swear on YouTube. And he'd gone off about 5 o'clock in the morning to get some rutting deer up in Richmond Park. He went very early up there, and he's got some great pictures of that as well. So all these will be in the new book.
I keep sending them to Simon, just with, and my mum actually. I keep sending him over just with your daily deer update.
Yeah.
My mum because she's genuinely interested, and Simon because it really annoys him.
I just get really cross. I get really, really cross. Great book, guys. Honestly, if anybody wants to buy that book, just put a motion of interest on the channel now with your email address, and then Lawrie will write them all down. And when we get the books, the books,
don't stick your email address in the comments. That is how you get your identity stolen instantly.
Oh, is it?
If you are interested in
email
that one, please
us.
drop us an email. So it's media@wildlifeaid.org.uk. So just media@wildlifeaid.org.uk. So that's an email that both Abby and I share. Just let us know if that is something that you're interested in. If you did want to pre-order or anything like that, I will get around to it, I promise. I'd actually have all the photos in place. I've got the number of pages. It's 100, slightly spoiler. But there's certain bits of text I've yet to write, and I was in discussions with the company about printing about how much would do. But unfortunately it's run on a little long on there, and it certainly won't be done in time to ship out by Christmas, so I think we're gonna wait till next year on that one.
It's rather like the Wildlife Aid laptop we were going to buy and the first aid courses he was going to do. That's also been going on for 2 years as well. So
that is not true. I haven't been a first aid instructor for 2 years.
So you know, if you're too near the time of dying, don't order the books. You'll never have it done by the time you die, which is why I haven't ordered mine, really, just in case. No, it should be great. He's very good at it. We've got a 2022 calendar ready to rock and roll. It's in the shop now. We've got it. We'll send it out again. Order it on the website. That's, I think, Lawrie and Abby's images mainly, isn't it, Lawrie?
Yeah, all the good ones are Abby's. So this is our 2022 calendar. So the cover actually is a photo that Abby took of a kingfisher just after release on a branch. Lovely, lovely shot. I'm not jealous of it in any way, shape or form.
I'm quite proud of that, to be fair.
But these are all patients that have been through Wildlife Aid and have gone out the other side this year. So many species on there. There's kingfisher, badger, little owl, fox and some hedgehogs, but there's obviously a lot more than that within it as well. If you do want one of those, every penny that comes from that goes back into helping us help more animals both at the end of this year and into next year. So if you do want one of those, we are I'm not sure how much stock we've got left. We should have enough, but stock is going out very, very quickly. So please, Abby will leave a link in the chat. I've just properly dropped her into that. She's already done it. There you go. She's already done it. But please head on over to the website as well and get one of those before they run out, because they are running out before too long.
We've got Christmas cards for anybody sad enough. We've got my autobiography. For anybody even sadder, no, I love that one. We've got Owl's Dream, or the Owl. I forgot what it's called. I never remember what the book I wrote was called.
The Owl with the Golden Heart.
That's
the
the
Owl
one.
with the
Abby.
Golden Heart. You
Owl
never
with
remember
Golden
what your own book is actually called. It's
we've just
weird.
we just reissued that because we'd sold out, and we did a 10-year special edition of that book, so that's available as well. There's a copy in my office if you want to grab it, Lawrie. It's right there on the shelf.
Abby's running through.
Abby's running
we'll,
through.
We'll grab a copy. I love the way that you must have spent a good chunk of your life either writing or selling this book. There you go, The Hour with the Golden Heart.
That's the 10-year
and
edition.
you still can't remember what it's called.
I can't. Right, so when I started it, it was called Owl's Dream because chapter 2, which I still remember, is all about a dream that Owl had. And that's why I called it Owl's Dream, but then it was changed, people didn't like it. It's got some lovely illustrations in it. It's a really nice book. It was really written for children, but I've had so many comments from people, you know, quite elderly people who have read it and burst into tears because it's so wonderful. Whether they burst into tears because it's my bad writing or the story's so bad, I've no idea. But everybody seems to like it, or the comments we've had, people seem to like it. Lawrie hasn't read it because he doesn't care.
I have read it, actually.
Have you?
I have read it.
Did you enjoy it? You can't say no now.
Yeah.
Good. Well, there you are. So
I have actually read it mostly because you said that I wouldn't, so I did.
No, it's basically it's rather like a Duncton Wood or a Warship Down. It's what the work we do here, but from the animal's perspective. So we're just guessing what happened to the animal before it came in. So that's a guess. But then it goes through here, the hospital, and then goes out to the wild again. And wise old Owl, the blind owl, is the one who sees them all through and tells them to calm down and don't panic, because we will get them back out to the wild again. So Owl's Dream's available, the book's available, the calendar's available.
Call it Owl's Dream again.
Okay. The Owl with the Golden Heart's available. My autobiography's available, and Laurie's book will be available in 2020 something.
8.
Yeah, that's no. 2022 it's got to be. What else we got?
Okay,
So we've got Amazon. People shop on Amazon. I'm just going to do this last one because you always shout at me when I don't do the arse at the end. If you're a member of Amazon, if you buy things from Amazon, please go on to Amazon Smile and put Wildlife Aiders as your chosen charity, because it actually makes us a decent amount of money. It's well worth having. So people who do shop on Amazon, go to Amazon Smile instead and buy your things that way. Off you go, Lawrie.
So there's an interesting question that's actually coming on Facebook from George, one for you. There seems to be no end to the amounts and types of equipment or devices you use for your rescues. Is the art or science of rescues continually evolving, and are you always adding new tricks to your kit?
Yes, is the answer. Very little of the kit we use you can actually go and buy in a shop. We actually get a couple of rescues of the same sort and we add that bit of kit. We make a bit of kit to suit that sort of rescue. We've made hundreds of bits over the years, all things which actually I noticed a lot of other centres have stolen. I should have copyrighted most of them. I should have trademarked them. But yeah, so
Not theft.
the basic kit we buy, but we even adapt basic kit. We'll take something out on a rescue and it doesn't work, so we'll just adapt that bit of kit to something else. So we've got all sorts of things that we've made specially for particular rescues, and we know when we go to a rescue roughly what we're going to need, so we don't take everything all the time. But if it's a big bit of kit we're likely to need because we know what the rescue is, then obviously we take the right amount of kit with us at that time. But it has evolved over the years, and I dare say we'll continue to evolve as we find better ways of doing things, to be honest.
I think what tends to happen on a rescue, if we come across a situation that we've not dealt with before and we don't have the immediate kit for, we'll try and find a solution from that, and then when we get back we'll then think of how to make that more streamlined, easier, something that we can then take out and do if that situation ever comes up again. The one that I can think of is the keep net trick, as we do. So we actually use a long, I believe it's a fishing net, it's like a trout fishing net.
It's a keep net. It's a keep net for keeping fish in when you fished. But it's long. You keep in the water. It goes deep. It's long. It's a tunnel. It's about 2 foot square. Big net.
But it's something that we use for duck and duckling rescues. So a lot of charities have the same issue with this. If you get a mother duck and ducklings, if you approach too quickly, or you're too rushed with it, or you try and go too quickly, too sort of heavy-handed on the approach, mum will fly off. And if she flies off, the chances of her never coming back is actually quite high. And at that point, you've then broken that family up. You then have to take those ducklings into care. That costs money, time, and a whole load of things as well. And then you've broken up a family. Yes, that mother duck may go back on to breed again, but ideally you'd want to keep them together. So we tend to use the keep net as a much more gentle way of containing full families without the risk of mother duck flying off. So if you've ever seen any of our rescues where we actually use this, it's between Simon and usually another person that is there, slowly but gently pushing them towards the keep net. We put it in an area where we get an artificial narrowing, so they're artificially pushed into the mouth of the net. And when they're in the net, we let them go in a little way, and then we close the front down. And once that is closed, then you can work on catching them up and making sure that they're all contained, and you haven't got the risk of mum flying off. So it's something that we've found over the years has worked really well for helping us keep these families together. If you've seen that blooper reel from last year, you'll see his quiet concert with one of those.
Yeah, I can. Sometimes if the mother's gone and you make that noise, the ducklings will pop out the undergrowth to see if mum's there. So you can actually keep an eye. You can get things gathered together again, because when mum does go, the babies will all spread out everywhere, and it's a nightmare to try catch them. But if you make a noise like a mother duck, which Lawrie says I'm very good at, you can actually encourage them out a bit and find out where they are, and then you get in the net. But the whole idea, I would I'd much rather keep a family together, if we can, as Lawrie says, than split them up and have to take the ducklings in. I agree that if we took the ducklings in, the chances are we'd have probably a 99+% chance of getting all the ducklings through. Whereas if they're with their mum, sadly, with all the sort of predators out there, they're not going to have a very big brood at the end of it, which is why they have 12 or 13 to start with and usually end up with 2 or 3. But I'd rather nature does what nature does rather than us try to interfere, being too clever. So get them into a keep net. It's a trick we've used for many, many years. And in fact, it is a lot of years. Way back in the 1990s, I started using that. And it's a great way of doing it. You can actually get other things into it as well sometimes. You've just got to hide it.
We've had geese in there as well.
Yeah,
we tried a fox as well. That fox on the top of that 21st-story building, we tried to get in there. So that's an incredibly useful thing. There's a few comments on there. So a few people are wondering, do we get bats in the UK? Yes, we do. We have approximately 18 species of bat, 17 of which are breeding. The one that we usually see is called the common pipistrelle, but we do get soprano pipistrelles, long-eared bats, Daubenton's bats.
Lawrie, stop there. Lawrie, I want you to name all 17 species of bat in the UK, please. I've got my fingers up really. Off you go. 17, Lawrie. You said 17.
I'm not going to be able to do this. Okay, so you've got common pipistrelle, soprano pipistrelle, Nethusius pipistrelle, yeah, noctule bat, Daubenton's bat, serotine bat, Natura's bat. And then you've got the barbastelle, you've got branch, you've got whiskered, you've got the horseshoe bat, both the greater and the lesser, I think. Yes.
That's not bad. He got a lot more than I got there, so all credit to him. No, there are a lot of breeds of bat. We don't see many of them. As Lawrie said, we only see 2 or 3 normally. But they are around. We've actually got a bat detector, so we know which bat it is if we're ever going out trying to find one. And we can always also hear, if you have that bat detector, if they're in a house and you can't find it because it's going to have hidden in a little corner, you can actually hear it calling and you can sort of hone into where it is roughly. So they're quite a useful bit of kit to have. So yeah, we've got lots of kit. Again, it's another piece of kit that has evolved and we've sort of keep in the car for rescues. Not that often, but we do use it.
Just a bit of a tangent. In the chat on YouTube, the guys from Oxfordshire Wildlife Rescue have said that they would be interested in the book if I ever get around to actually doing it. Just want to say, I hope everything is going alright for you guys. I don't know if that's you, Luke, commenting on there, but I know you've had some real issues with flooding and all of that lot. I hope everything's worked out for that one. And guys, if you do want to go over them, just give them a bit of support, please do, because I know they've had a lot of issues with flooding. And we're all in the same game, we're all in this together, so I do hope everything has worked out for you on that one.
Can you please ask some questions off of the sheet?
I've been told I have to ask some questions off of the sheet.
Because lots of people asked in the chat earlier, and I said that we'd get you to ask them, so...
See, we do this, and Simon and I are in front of the camera, but let's be honest, we know who's really in charge here, and she's sat over there.
Hiding in the dark.
So, in terms of questions, how many people are working at Wildlife Aid?
Everybody but me. We've got only 5 members of staff. And actually I'm going to stop there because I've just remembered something. We need to get it in before we get to 8 o'clock, because it's 8 o'clock now. We are looking for an experienced wildlife vet, either full or part-time, and we're also looking for an experienced wildlife vet nurse. Experienced is the key word. We want somebody who has got quite a lot of experience in dealing with wildlife. So if you know anyone, or you are an experienced wildlife vet or vet nurse, then please give us a call. We are looking for people at the moment. But so staff-wise, we only have 5 members of staff at Wildlife Aid. We have 4 or 5 people who are on sort of retainers. They're sort of self-employed, but they work for us full-time. And we have about, or we did have 400 volunteers. I think that shrunk dramatically. Poor Alice
it was
used
450, but
yeah.
I think COVID.
Alice used to have a full
head.
head of hair, and over the last year she's pulled most of it out. She spends all her time trying to get more volunteers. We are always so short of volunteers, guys, so please don't be shy in coming forward, or even if you know people who might be interested, don't be scared to say, look, give Wildlife Aid a call, go onto the website. We are looking for volunteers. It does require a regular commitment, so you have to be sort of happy to do at least 1 shift a week, but we need them desperately. We are very, very short. Like, we need volunteer vet nurses, we need volunteer vets, anybody who thinks they might like to come and help us just once a week, 1 day a week, vet or vet nurse, that would be amazing as well. We'll give you all the tuition you need. You can probably teach us a few things as well, but you know, come and join us, guy. Come and join the crazy gang at Wildlife Aid.
And to be honest, if you come here and you can cope with working with Simon, you can work anywhere. So it's a massive tick on the CV box. Worked for Simon Cowell. You don't need to know which one. But
Lawrie, you're so
I'm going to pay for that. I am.
Laurie's going to pay for that. Huge.
Shannon's just asked, have you ever rescued a domestic animal?
Yeah, we have. I've rescued dogs from down badger badger sets. Yeah, we've rescued domestic
cats up trees.
Cats up trees.
We had a bunny abandoned in our car park.
Yeah, we have all sorts of things. Yeah, we rescue domestic. It's not what we do, but if we get thrust upon a situation like that, or other people can't catch it, we will always have a go. Obviously, if you're within the local vicinity, we tend to stay within about an hour of the centre. If it was something really major which nobody else could handle, we would go further. But an hour from the centre just about keeps us pretty much fully employed. So yeah, we'll do that as well. So we're getting past 8 o'clock now. We've gone over the time. Now, have you got anything else you particularly need to say? Because you know you always drag it on.
We've got quite a lot of the questions on the YouTube, so we'll try and get through these. We can answer these relatively quick fire on that one.
You always say that, Lawrie, quick fire.
Carrie, I have hedgehogs visiting. Is it okay to feed them throughout the winter? They'd look big and healthy.
They shouldn't want much food in the winter because they should be hibernating. If they're not hibernating, put food out sometimes. I wouldn't put it out all the time. With any wild animal, I would never feed it all the time because it gets so reliant on you. If you die or move or go on holiday, it's going to be a disaster for that animal because it will get used to a central source of food. So feed intermittently if you have to, unless you've got medication going into it for some reason. Don't feed unless you've actually got 6 inches of ice or 6 feet of snow. They can find their own food if they need it, and hedgehogs particularly should be hibernating in the winter, most of them anyway.
So a couple of people have asked, are hedgehogs related to pigs in any way?
I'll let Lawrie answer that one because I'm going to say no.
As far as I'm aware, no. So hedgehogs are under the scientific classification, something like Erinaceomorpha, something like that. They're quite a distinct group. From a lot of things. There's a lot of different types of hedgehogs, and a lot of things that are similar to hedgehogs but aren't hedgehogs. But as far as I'm aware, and I may hold my hand up here and be completely wrong. As far as I'm aware, they're not related to pigs in any way. Hedgehog originally comes from the hedge side of things, is because they tend to live in hedgerows and things like that. The hog is from the grunting, snuffling sounds that a hedgehog will make as they're foraging for food. So as far as I'm aware, they're not even slightly related to pigs. They're just named because the sounds are quite similar.
Absolutely. Lawrie, you've got 1 minute to close this down because it's 8:05 and you always go rambling on afterwards, and I get into so much trouble because we've gone over our 1 hour allocation. So you can have one more question, and then we've gone, guys. We've gone for another month.
Okay, so a few people have gone, how can I help my local foxes? How can I help an injured fox? Fox is very friendly, all of that lot as well. A few people are asking, is it worth feeding them to try and help them through the winter, and if they do notice one with any sort of injuries, what should they do? So we can roll those into.
We sort of answered that already to a degree. So if you need something that looks as if it's desperately in need of food, give it the odd meal or two, then stop. You don't want them to come into
if
you
do
all
that,
the time.
do not let them associate it with you. If you put food out, put food at the other end of the garden. Don't
and walk away.
Put it so that they see you put it there. They don't want to associate it between you and the food, because at that point, if they walk up to the wrong person, that can cause some major issues.
So yeah, feed it if absolutely vital. Don't feed continually by any stretch. Even in the winter, animals can find food. In the summer, obviously, they should all be able to find food easily. If it gets very dry, they might need water. But yeah, just think what you're doing and think sensibly. As my favourite expression is, it's not rocket science. Just use your imagination. If you were that animal, what you'd want, how you'd cope with it, and you'll probably come up with the right answer. So yeah, just be careful. Don't feed too much. Don't feed too often. They don't need it, to be honest.
Okay, and one last question before, unfortunately, we do have to end for today. Monique has asked, how do you decide whether you can attend a rescue? What criteria do you work through?
It's absolutely, it's like anything we do here. It's just happens. It's the spur of the moment. Who's available? Who's about? Whether they need us? Whether we can send another rescue? We've got so many great rescuers here now who can do the easy things. Lawrie and I only go out if we have to now. If it's a really complicated thing and we've got the kit that other people don't carry with them. So yes, we will go out to difficult things, but we've got so many great rescuers here who do a load of our rescues. They probably do 90% of our rescues, to be honest. Lawrie and I are both becoming redundant. I'm more redundant than him. But yeah, so there's no set criteria. It's what's happening that day, at that time, at that minute, whether it needs us, whether it doesn't, and we'll work out. But it will happen. The rescue will happen, even if we farm it across to somebody else, if they're closer than we are. We are there to help wildlife, and that's the end of the story. Lawrie, we're going to say goodnight now.
Our reception team, just to clarify that, reception team actually do have a sheet that they work through from top to bottom, and it just asks all of the relevant questions. It might not seem relevant to someone that may call in, it may seem a bit weird, but it just helps us to know, one, what we're going to be expecting, two, whether we need a more experienced rescuer or someone that is less experienced and can actually use it to learn how to rescue things a lot more, and then what kit we need as well. Say if you've got a mobile animal compared to a collapsed animal, you need different kits for that. Whether or not it is something that we then need PPE, if it's something that's potentially zoonotic, there's a whole load of things that we have to think through on our side before we can actually head out. Otherwise we'll turn up and we won't have the right kit, we won't have the right people, it can be a complete nightmare, so we just need to make sure that's all sorted before we go out.
Pictures, I think the latest technology, we get there quickest, we've got GPS. Lawrie was saying the other day, how the heck did you used to do rescues in the old days when I used to have a map on my lap?
Nightmare.
2 o'clock in the morning, driving along on a dark rural street or road in the middle of nowhere, trying to find somewhere. It was a nightmare, and it was a nightmare. I had a huge great A to Z of Surrey, and I'd have that on my lap on the steering wheel trying to drive to find it. Nowadays GPS really helps, and obviously we've got all sorts of other aids as well which sort of get us to somewhere very quickly and get us to the right place with due speed. And I've actually answered half that question. I've forgotten what the question was now. And
on that note,
we're going to say it's good night from me.
It's time, unfortunately, to end once again.
It's my bedtime.
On December 22nd is our last live stream of the year, so we will be looking back on what's happened this year, some of the more interesting cases we deal with. Pardon?
It is
22nd.
I thought that. Oh my God, that's
22nd is 3 days.
No, it's not. The 29th is the last Wednesday.
Yes, but that's actually after Christmas when a few people aren't here, so it's actually going to be on the 22nd. Spoiler alert.
Ooh, Laurie's having a holiday. Laurie's having a holiday.
I'm not. I'm still here.
Well,
I'm always here.
Abby's off again.
But it will be in 3 weeks' time, and we will be running a bit of a wrap-up of what's happened this year. So if you do have any of your favourite memories or anything like that from this year, please let us know. It would be interesting to bring some of those back up. And we will see you on December the 22nd. Thank you, as always, for your support, whether it be liking, commenting, donating, sharing, everything. It is all hugely valuable. And we say this every time, and it doesn't get old. We can only do what we do thanks to your support. We're not governmentally funded. We only can survive because of you guys. So thank you so much, as always, for your support. Thank you from both of us to all the volunteers and staff members and all of that lot that make it all possible here. And we will see you on December the 22nd.
Have a good Christmas, guys, but we will see you just before. Take care.